Hello and welcome back. I'm Stickmasterluke. It's time to move forward. So next we're going to be working on, we're going to make it so you can actually up your chance of becoming the Bloxxer. Because right now it's all working, but there's no way to actually raise your chance. So we're going to make the GUI that allows you to say, hey, I want to spend 25 points. And then we're going to do all the back end work so that you can actually spend 25 points to upgrade it. So first let's make the window that pops up. We're going to be calling this the Bloxxer chance window. And it's going to be a text label. Bloxxer chance window. And this is going to be larger because it's a window. So we're going to make it 300 by 185. And we're going to want in the center of the screen, so 0.5 here, 0.5 here. Alright, this is considered 0, 0 of the GUI element, and we move it by 0.5 in the X and 0.5 in the Y, so it ends up being right in the center of the screen, and now we have to subtract from the center of the GUI, so how big it is minus 150. Minus 93. So now it's perfectly centered in your screen no matter how you resize it. And if you remember, we also did this for the Bloxxer chant, no, what was it? The class prompt and the endgame prompt. So if we make these visible, let's do that real quick. Visible. So we actually want the class prompt and the game result prompt to show up on top of this. So we're going to change their Z index. So for class prompt and all of its children, select them all, and we're going to set the Z index on those to 5. So that always shows up on top. I'm going to set that to invisible. We're going to do the same thing for the result prompt. Set to visible so we can make sure it works. We set it to 5, but we got to set its children to 5 as well. This is like page layers, so this would be on the fifth from the top. Or from the bottom, which is the middle. And in Roblox, we only get 10 layers, so we're just going to use layer 5. We're going to set this back to invisible. Okay, so this is going to be our little window. When you click Bloxxer chance, it's going to pop up this window and ask you if you'd like to buy 5 times extra chance of becoming the Bloxxer for 25 points. And then you click this button and it will give you those points. Okay, so this window is called... Oh, I changed the text to Bloxxer chance window. We're actually going to want to change the name of it to Bloxxer chance window and get rid of the text. Okay. And then under it, I think we're going to want 4 things. One is going to be an X button, so you can close it. The next is going to be some text about it, a buy button, and maybe some that says like what you're actually getting here at the top. It's going to be like a visual picture. Okay, so in here, let's start with the X button. Inserting a new object. It's going to be a text button. And it's not showing up on the right layer, so we're going to set the Z index of this new object to 2. We don't need the X button to be this big. Let's first name this button. X button. 100 by 100 is quite large, so I'm thinking like 25 square. Yep, 25 square, and then let's change the text to be an X. If you wanted, you could use an image button and put an image in here, but it's really easy just to use text for something like an X button. See? And then, what else are we going to do? We want to position it, and we want to color it to be the classical color for closing things. That classical color is like a reddish. Let's go to red. Maybe something like that. So we're using kind of pastel colors in our game, so that's why I'm trying to use like a lighter red. And then we're going to position it in the upper right corner, because that's the typical corner that you expect closed symbols to be in. And I'm making it fall off the page a little bit, because I think it's a nice little style for our game. So I set the position to 1, 19, 0, -6. Okay. Now we're going to copy this, paste it in. This is now going to be our buy button. And this thing's position is going to be, let's change the size first. Size is going to be 1. So it's going to be all the way across, -30. And it's going to be 25. I think it's going to be the same height as the X button. Now we got to reposition it. So let's say 0.5 minus 135. Yeah. Okay, and then we want this one to be near the bottom. So 1 minus 40. Okay, so I set this one's position to 0.5, -135, 1, -40. That puts it right about here. But it doesn't look enticing. I don't want to buy anything that's just a big red X. So we're going to actually change this to a green color. And then we're also going to change the text to buy for 25 points. But the font for this one is set to Arial, because the Arial was better for the X. But because this isn't an X, let's set it back to like the font that we've been using. Actually, I think Arial Bold might look better. I do like this one better, because it fills up more of the space horizontally. So yeah, I'm going to use Arial Bold for this actually. Okay, now we're going to want a text label describing what you're buying. So let's create a new text label. Oops. We can just leave it, or we're just going to title it, why not, description label. And the background is going to want to be fully transparent, so we set that to 1. And this is how big it's going to be. 0.9, 0, 0, 50. It's going to be this big, and it's going to be positioned at 0.05, 0, 1, -110. So the little description is going to go like right here. And the text that we're going to want to put in it, I've already kind of planned this out a little bit, so I'm just going to copy paste it. Description label, we're going to set the text. Oh, we got to make it wrapped, text wrapped. So I'm setting the text to become 5 times more likely to be chosen as a Mad Bloxxer. Your chances return to normal after you become the Mad Bloxxer. We're going to use the text source sans because it's easier to read. Source sans bold because it's easier to read for smaller text. Size 14. Center justified, yes. Okay, and then let's also put kind of like an image or something up here so you kind of get an idea of what you're actually getting. So we're going to use the same thing as the Bloxxer chance window, the display text for the Bloxxer chance window. So we're going to copy this and place it into here. First, let's put in some text. The text is going to be ×5. We want this to show up at the top. So It's actually going to be 50. Instead of being all the way down, I can set that to 1, and this to 15. Perfect. Cool. So when you click Bloxxer Chance, this window pops up and says 5 times. Become 5 times more likely to be chosen as a Mad Bloxxer. Your chances return to normal after you become the Mad Bloxxer. And you can buy it for 25 points, or you can close the window. Sweet. And then also, we're going to want something very similar to this for buying the sword, the Emerald Sword. So we're just going to copy this window. This is our Bloxxer Chance window. We're going to copy it and then make it invisible. And then paste a new one in, because we just copied it. We're going to call this Emerald Sword window. Okay, for the Emerald Sword window, the buy button, first of all, is not going to say 25. It's going to say 100. It costs 100 points for the Emerald Sword. We do not need the display text. We're going to have an image of the sword here. For the description label, again, I'm going to copy this. And it says, as a Bloxxer, you will have your typical sword replaced by the Emerald Sword. Not only does it look awesome, but it also does twice the damage. And you can buy it for 100 points. So we need an image of the sword up here. So we're going to create an image label. We're going to insert an object called image label. And you can see it has a weird index where it's below everything. So let's change the Z index to 2. And we're going to set the position and size right now to size 0, 180, 0, 180. So it's going to be a square of 180 pixels. And its position is going to be 0.5, -90. So that horizontally centers it. And then 0, -45. So it's going to be right there. It's kind of covering everything up. So first of all, the background transparency is going to be 1, but also the image right now is a default image. So let's remove that. And so now, now we just need to find an image for it. So for the Emerald Sword, we're going to get the icon for the Emerald Sword. So let's go actually to the toolbox, insert, and then search. The sword for the Roblox game, Roblox Battle. Okay, this is the correct one. So when I open up the sword script, it should have somewhere in one of the scripts actually. Oh, modifier script. So you want to look in the toolbox for a Roblox Battle sword, and you want to look for one that has a modifier script in it. And this modifier script actually has all these textures and materials to make our sword look like the Emerald Sword. So we're just going to copy these. Close, 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 close. Okay, and we're going to get rid of this sword that we just inserted. Now our sword for the actual game, we're going to use these textures for it. So in replicated storage, no, where did we put it? Server storage, sword. In the sword script, just put these in here. And then we're going to be using the icon, crystal sword icon. So let's copy this URL for the image. And now in our local script, no, sorry, in our GUI that we were working on, this image label that we just made, we're going to put the sword image right here. Boom. So we got this sword, still covering up our text. Luckily, we can rotate the GUI element, so we're going to do that. So somewhere, there's a rotation right here. The rotation we want is, I think, 315. Nice. So now we have the image of the Emerald Sword right here. So what happens is you click on that. In fact, we could update that image. Emerald Sword, set this image, we're putting this one. We're probably going to want to change the background transparency to 1. And, I don't know, let's reposition and resize it while we're at it. So, this Emerald Sword button that's going to be over here, we're going to set its size to 150 by 150 in offset. We can set its position to -90, I think, by 0.5 by 50. And then we're going to rotate this as well. Where's rotation? Rotation. We're going to set its rotation to -45. So that on the side of your screen, you'll have this. And you can click on this, and it'll bring up this window, and then you can buy the Emerald Sword for 100 points, or you can close the window. And then if you already own the Emerald Sword, we want it so that when you click on this, it says that you own this instead of buy. So we're going to make a new text label. So I'm copying the description label and pasting into, and this is going to be at the same size and position as our buy button. So let's copy the position and copy the size. Copying the position. I'm going to name this one, let's say I spelled it wrong. Alright. Bot text. This is going to say you own this item. And the position is going to be the same thing as the buy button. So I copied that and I'm pasting it. And its size is going to be the same thing, which I think it's like 0.9 by 20. Oh, okay. Let's just copy the size. Okay, so now it's directly behind the buy button. Let's make sure the buy button's on the top layer. So we're going to set its z-index. Oh, its z-index is 2. And the bot button's z-index is 1. So that when the buy button, if the player owns it, we can set this buy button to be invisible. And it'll say you own this item. In fact, let's make the text larger. Cool. So if you click on this and you own it, it'll show this window. And if not, if you don't own it, then it will show this. Okay. Now we have the Emerald Sword window, and we have the Bloxxer Chance window. Now we have to hook them up. So to hook them up, we're going to go to our local GUI. Let's close the sword script. Let's get all the GUI that we just created. Okay, so what I'm waiting for is the window. Oops, I didn't even type his name in correctly. Window. We're waiting for the Bloxxer Chance window. And then we're looking for the buy button in there and the X button in there. And then we can just copy this because the Emerald Sword window is very, very similar. Paste it here. Now I just replace Bloxxer Chance with Emerald Sword. Okay, so now we have easy variables for shortcuts to our GUI. We're also going to need to listen to the values. Oh, we got these. Nice. Oh, we're going to listen to the buttons that prompt these windows to open. So these buttons are... The points label has a button. Here, if we go back. Remember how there's an invisible button covering this entire thing? We're going to want to get that one. We're going to want to get this one. And we're going to want to get this one. Actually, I think we already got these two. So we just need to get this emerald sword one. Yeah, so here's the one. So let's... Alright, so this emerald sword variable is the button on the left side of the screen that will open the prompt, that will open the window to buy the emerald sword. Okay, so now in our GUI we want to hook these up so the server can buy this stuff for them. When you open one window, if you open the emerald sword window when you have the by chance window up, we want to close all the other windows. So we're just going to make a really simple function that closes them. So this is just a really easy function. And if we have more windows, we could also have it close those in there. Okay, so when you click the X button, you want to close the windows. So GUI elements that are buttons have a mouse button one down event. And so we're going to be using that. And if that is, if it's pressed, so this is our close button. So if the close button is ever fired, we can just close windows. So if the close button for the Bloxxer chance window is clicked, then just close all the windows. And same with the emerald sword. And we're allowed to close all the windows because they're all on top of each other, and so you should only have one open at a time anyways. So if you click close, you expect it to clear your screen so you can see. So the emerald sword close, and the Bloxxer chance window will close. Okay, now let's make it so these windows actually pop up. So yeah, we need to make it so these windows open up when you click the proper buttons. So first let's do the points. And we're also going to have one for Bloxxer chance button. And this one opens up the Bloxxer window. So we're actually going to sort this one a little bit differently. Okay, so this is a little bit confusing how we're doing it, but this this does what we want it to do. So when you click this is a Bloxxer chance button. Bloxxer chance button is the button that covers up this whole area. So if you click this, if the window is already visible, so the window that's in the middle of the screen, if that's already visible, then when you click the thing on the left, it means we want to close that. And if it's not visible, then we close all current windows and we open up the Bloxxer chance window. So if you click this on the side, it will open and close this window for the Bloxxer chance. And then the same thing, we're going to do exactly the same thing for the Emerald Sword. Okay, and now we're going to hook up the buy buttons. So we have the close buttons hooked up. Let's hook up the buy buttons. Okay, so we're going to fire an event to the server, because the server is going to handle all the logic. The server has all that data, and so pretty much what we're going to send is a message to the server saying, hey, I want to buy this. So, event, I think we have event already defined, because we're listening to it, but now we're going to be telling it to do stuff. So event, so just so the server knows what kind of information we're sending it, first we say, hey, I want to buy something, and then next we say, this is what I want to buy. You can sort it out differently. You could just send it one message that says, buy this. But I think this is nice and good coding. Good organization. Emerald Sword. And then also for the points button. Okay. So now our script tells the server, hey, I want to do this stuff. And then the server will hopefully do the stuff. Before we leave here, we're going to want to make the GUI update depending if the variables update. So let's say your Emerald Sword changes from not owning it to owning it, from 0 to 1. Then you want to update the window. So to do that, I'm going to write a function that listens for it. Doesn't matter where you put this stuff, as long as it's still code that's being ran, so it's above any loop. It's above any loops. So function update Emerald Sword. So it's very similar to this. In fact, I should have copied this one, but it doesn't matter. It's very similar to this update multiplier. We're going to update the Emerald Sword. So 0 means that you don't own it. And if you don't own it, then the buy button is visible. Otherwise, is not visible, and it shows the message below it that says, what does it say? You own this item. Now we gotta connect this function. We gotta write code that calls this chunk of code. So whenever the emerald sword value is changed, we want to call this function. And then we also want to call this function right when the code starts. So every time you spawn, your screen GUI gets refreshed, and so all this code needs to run again. So we update it. Okay, now let's go to the server. Go into the server script, and we're going to hook these up so the server actually awards the emerald sword or the multiplier, all that kind of stuff. So currently our server script doesn't listen to the event function or the event, the remote event. All it does is send out information, so we're going to write something that listens to information. Event. This has to be above the while true do loop. If it's below the while true do loop, this code will never be ran, so it has to be above the loop. It will never be ran because this loop is continually going. Every cycle, this loop is continually going. Event on server event connect function. So for server events, it's coming from a player. So the first variable is actually always the player, and the other variables are what you send it. Okay. First we want to make sure the player exists, so if player, then now let's set up the tuple. So this is just the information that we're being sent. We're going to just call it tuple because that's the actual name of what the ellipses is. Okay, local tuple equals. You put that ... in there, and this is like a collection of all the information separated by commas, and you're putting it into a table, and so they're set up numerically by 1, 2, 3, 4 in ascending order. So remember, the first piece of information we sent was telling the script exactly what we're doing, and it's going to be buying, just to sort out and organize our code a little bit. So if we have other stuff like teleport me somewhere, or if we have it do anything that's not buying, we could separate it out, and it just makes the code easier to read. Okay. Now if the second piece of information So we have 3 things that we can buy. We have 100 points that you can buy with Robux. We have the emerald sword. Actually, we have the Bloxxer chance. And we have the emerald sword. Okay, so if we're buying the Bloxxer chance, we're going to want to find the player's current data. Because remember, we set up the local data in the same script, so we can call it easily. That's why the client script has to tell the server script to do this. Okay, so we see if they have data, and then we see if they have points that are greater than or equal to 25. Because this costs 25 points. We don't want them going in a negative, in a point debt. So you can only buy this if you have 25 points, because it costs 25 points. So after you do this, the first thing we want to do is give them what they just bought. So you give them +5 to their multiplier. And then our award points function is really nice because we can hand it a negative number and it will subtract that amount. Oops, not 100, -25. So what we're doing is we're using the award points function to subtract their points. So it costs 25, so we remove 25. And what's nice about the award points is that it updates the value that goes along with it. So it updates the value that tells the client to update its visual. That's why we're using that. And speaking of that, we also need to update the value for the multiplier, right? So because we just changed the data behind it, we need to change the value that the GUI is looking at. So to do that, we do this. Multiplier value equals the value that we found, or the value that we use to hold it. Then if we find it, then we set its value to the data, whatever the data says it currently is. And multiply, I forgot not here. Cool. Let's break this up a little bit so we can read it a little bit better. One thing that we're also going to want to do, by default, your chance of becoming your multiplier is at 1, and so if we add 5, it will actually become 6. I want it to go from 1 times to 5 times to 10 times. So to do that, we actually need to type in code that says this. So instead of going 1, 6, 11, 16, we're going 1, 5, 10, 15. Just because you start at 1 by default, and we need to account for that when we're adding 5 the first time. So if it's 6, then we set it to 5. Okay. So that will update. If you press the buy button on that Bloxxer chance page, it will award you the points and change your multiplier value. Sweet. Now we want to do the same thing for the Emerald Sword, so I'm copying this, pasting it. Instead of looking for 25 points, the sword costs 100 points, so we put 100 here. We're not updating the multiplier, we're updating this sword, so set that to 1. Actually, this is very important, you should always do this. You want to make sure, since they can buy this once, we want to make sure that they don't already own it. Because we don't want to subtract 100 points again if they already own it. So you have to make sure that they don't own it as well. So you make sure they have enough points to buy it, and you make sure that they don't already have one. And then what you do is you set it to that they have one, which we're going to be using 1 as a value that you have it. And then we can get rid of this part. Make sure that we actually subtract 100. And we're not updating the multiplier value, we're updating the Emerald Sword value. Nice. I think we did it. Alright, that concludes this little section. Next we'll be making the emerald sword and awarding it to them once they've bought it. Roblox, where you make the game.